Chamber will come to order, please. It's my pleasure to introduce a number of guests before we hear from the Chief Justice on the state of the judiciary. First and foremost, I would like to introduce the Governor of the state of Indiana, Eric Holcomb, and Lieutenant Governor Susanna Crouch. In the balcony, we have the Chief Justice's husband, Jim Rush. Jim, thank you for being with us. And also the son of the Chief Justice, Luke Rush. Luke, thanks for being with us as well. The Chief Justice's sister, Helena Bishop. The wife of Justice Stephen David, Catherine Pulley. Justice Mark Mass's wife, Maureen Keefe. Maureen. We have the Attorney General for the state of Indiana, Curtis Hill. Attorney General. Our Auditor of State, Tara Klutz. Thanks for being with us, Tara. The Executive Director of the Office of Court Services, Jane Seagal. Jane. Our Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Doug Carter. Superintendent. He's out chasing someone right now, probably. Larry Landis, the Executive Director of the Indiana Public Defenders. Larry. Larry's retiring this year, and he's put a notch in the wall back there for every one of the state of the judiciaries that he's attended, and there are 40 notches up there, Larry. So thank you for being here. The Executive Director of the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council, Dave Powell. Dave. I can't recall at 10 of these events that I've served as the introducer introducing our United States attorneys, but we have two with us today, United States Attorney Josh Minkler and United States Attorney Thomas Kirsch. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We have Grant County Judge Dana Kenworthy. Judge Kenworthy. The Administrator of the Supreme Court, Mary Willis. Much to their chagrin, we have 70 trial court judges who I am not going to introduce individually, but we'd ask for you all to rise and be recognized. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We recognize that you are the backbone of our state's judiciary, and we appreciate it greatly. We're joined again, graced by the presence today of First Lady Janet Holcomb. Right there. We also have several former justices of the Supreme Court, former Chief Justice Randall Shepard, Justice Myra Selby, and Justice Brent Dixon. Also have failed and don't have a list, so I'm just going to say we introduced our Senate and House leadership last evening, and we want to recognize and thank you again, Senator Long and your team, Representative Gooden, Senator Lannon, and others. Thank you so much for being here. Let's just give them a round of applause. Now is when I generally state to open the doors, but over your applause, your raucous applause, I can never recognize who is escorting the Chief Justice. So I'm going to read through that list. First of all, we have Senators Aaron Freeman, Senator Victoria Spartz, Senator Tim Lannon, Senator Greg Taylor, Representative Tom Washburn, Representative Jim Baird, Representative Robin Shackelford, and Representative Sheila Clinker from the House and Senate. Then the Chief Justice is also joined by her Supreme Court colleagues, Justice Stephen David, Justice Mark Massa, Justice Jeffrey Slaughter, Justice Christopher Goff, and from the Court of Appeals, Chief Justice Nancy Vadic, Judge John Baker, Edward Najim, Judge Mark Bailey, Judge Melissa May, Judge Margaret Robb, Judge Paul Mathias, Judge Michael Barnes, Judge Terry Crone, Judge Cale Bradford, Judge Elaine Brown, Judge Rudolph Pyle, Judge Robert Altice, and Tax Court Judge Martha Blood Wentworth. So let's please introduce our Chief Justice and her escorts. As soon as they work their way up here, I'll introduce you. Watch the step. This way. Gentlemen. You'll be introduced. It's my honor and privilege to introduce the 52nd Lieutenant Governor of the state of Indiana for the purpose of convening a joint convention of the House and Senate, Lieutenant Governor Susanna Crouch.
Members of the General Assembly, pursuant to Section 3 of Article 7 of the Constitution of the State of Indiana, this joint session of the two houses of the Indiana General Assembly is now convened for the purpose of hearing a message from the Chief Justice of Indiana. It is my privilege to present to you the distinguished Chief Justice of Indiana, Loretta Rush.
Governor Holcomb, Lieutenant Governor Crouch, members of the General Assembly, state leaders and judges, welcome to the 2018 State of the Judiciary. Today I fulfill my constitutional responsibility on reporting on Indiana's judiciary, which I am pleased to say is renewed, respected, and resolved, in a word, strong. Let's begin by talking about the happiest day in court, Adoption Day. What you saw on the monitors were the hope-filled faces of some of the 220 children in 33 Indiana courthouses, children who joined their forever families in November. The Supreme Court allowed cameras in court for Adoption Day proceedings, and we wanted to share these moments with you because we are immensely proud to be part of what is making Indiana one of the most adoption-friendly states in the nation. The 4,100 adoption cases were but a fraction of the 1,316,714 cases filed in courts this past year. These cases ranged from business litigation to foreclosures, from family violence to property rights, from human trafficking to elder abuse, and of course the drug crisis. These cases tell dramatic stories of our children, our families, our communities, in essence, the story of our Hoosier state. Thanks to the extraordinary men and women of Indiana's judicial branch, delivering justice in courthouses across the state, we're firmly poised to meet future challenges. In preparing these remarks, I asked your leadership what you would like included in this address. So thank you, Governor Holcomb, President Long, Speaker Bosma, leaders Piloth, Gooden, and Lanin. I appreciated your input and your time. There was a common theme to your responses. How is the judiciary dealing with the opioid crisis? Addiction is swept into every community and it's flooding every court. And it's not just in Indiana, but across the country. This past year, in fact, I was appointed co-chair of the National Judicial Opioid Task Force. People often ask me the same questions they're asking you. What can we do about this crisis? And I have only one answer. Together, we have to do everything. This is a situation where well-reasoned, evidence-based judicial interventions can get people to treatment, give consequences, cut the supply, support families, and save lives. Your judiciary is responding by convening teams from every county, community teams, this July to participate in extensive training on treatment for substance use disorder that works. We're developing a toolbox with our partners to come up with effective and evidence-based court-ordered drug treatment. We're extending the reach of our problem-solving courts. We expect to have over 100 such courts by the end of the year. We're advancing drug courts in child welfare cases so that will involve the entire family. We're expanding our Corps of CASA volunteers to support the children of parents swept up in the horrors of addiction. We're supporting community corrections, pretrial, and jail-based treatment so we can start treatment for the offenders as soon as possible. We're leveraging court technology to slow the supply of drugs from even hitting Indiana streets. And we're supporting your efforts to expand treatment and prevention in our communities. Yes, we are doing all this and more to combat the drug crisis. While opioids are currently our most emergent challenge, we confront many others. To better position the judiciary to face future challenges, the Indiana Supreme Court has made several strategic decisions. And today, I'd like to highlight three. First, we completed an extensive reorganization of our entire judicial branch administrative structure. Second, we expanded and improved our technology, and finally, we enhanced our judicial branch training by making it more rigorous. Last year, we completed an extensive and successful restructuring of all court agencies into a single judicial office. We base this restructuring on a proven business model. We now have a Chief Administrative Officer, Mary Willis, making our operations more efficient. We hired a Chief Financial Officer who serves as a single point of contact for all fiscal matters. It was no surprise to us that the Indianapolis Business Journal recently honored Aaron Hood as a top government CFO. We pride ourselves in being fiscally responsible and efficient while still operating with less than 1% of the overall state budget. Our new Office of Personnel and Operations, led by Bredna Rodenheffer, worked to move our administrative offices closer to the State House at a lower rent, a move that translated into millions of dollars in savings. The newly created Office of Court Services combined the former Indiana Judicial Center and the Division of State Court Administration. This single office streamlines our interactions with judges across the states while maintaining high-caliber training and programming. Similarly, we combine the continuing legal education with the Board of Law Examiners into a highly effective Office of Admissions and Education. We made this change as we celebrated the remarkable milestone of 30 years of required professional legal education to Indiana's 20,000 lawyers and judges. As you can imagine, a reorganization was massive, and it required a committed and sustained effort by our staff, most of whom are watching online. But the few that were able to snag a seat in here today, could you stand and be recognized? While we've reorganized the judicial branch's administrative structure, we've also looked at judicial caseloads from across the state. Judicial resources, especially given the surge of drug and child welfare cases, must be deployed effectively. Under Cass County Judge Moffmer's leadership, we performed an in-depth study of those resources to determine areas of need. As a result, the Supreme Court last year adopted a rule of efficiency and partnership, allowing judges to cross county lines to provide needed assistance to their colleagues. Here's an example from a courthouse I know well. Tippecanoe County should have more than 11 judicial officers. They have 8. Thank you, Carroll County Judge Fouts, for going to Lafayette each week to help with child welfare cases. Vanderburgh and Clark County are also in desperate need of judicial resources, so we sent in experienced senior judges. Our judges are crossing county lines to develop regional drug and veteran courts. In Warren and Fountain County, just one example, the judges refused to let the dividing line of the Wabash River determine whether an addict gets the treatment he or she needs. Thank you. In the past year, we made progress in modernizing Indiana's judicial branch, and it's a game changer. We're providing 24/7 access to the courts through electronic filing and an integrated case management system. The transformation of how we do business is astounding. Each week, 100,000 documents are electronically filed, and 71% of all new cases are in one case management system. Think of the time and cost savings. Litigants can find their case status on their phones instead of missing work to go to the courthouse. And tens of millions of pages are no longer copied, stamped, physically filed. Our goal is for the entire state to be electronically filing within the next year. Also, through the efficient use of technology, we are facilitating information sharing of extensive court data. Here's just a couple examples. We're tracking 7,000 adult guardianships. We have 11,000 mental health adjudications we're submitting to the FBI. We're submitting 900,000 protection orders to the registry. We're giving you, our policymakers, an analysis of 300,000 felony cases to help guide criminal code reform. We're providing the Department of Education with 40,000 cases so they are aware of convictions that would disqualify a person from teaching our children. We even leverage court data to prevent drugs from ever hitting the streets. You asked us to send law enforcement the names of those convicted of drug crimes to be entered every day in a national tracking system. We've achieved that goal. Pharmacies use our criminal data to prevent the sale of cold medicines used to make methamphetamine. You would think that people who know they're not allowed to buy drug precursors wouldn't try, but they do. And we've blocked thousands of precursors from ever getting to the street. The 42,709 people named thus far in the system will not be able to buy the meth precursors to cook and sell more drugs while we're all working so hard to solve this public health crisis. In addition, we're staying ahead of challenges we face through our commitment to rigorous education and training for our judges and their staffs. Indiana University Vice President for Research, Fred Kate, is with us today, described Indiana's judicial branch training as one of the most robust in the nation. Last year, we provided 250 days of training to over 9,000 individuals, including judicial officers, probation and community supervision officers, CASAs and adult guardian volunteers, court staff and clerks, drug, veteran, and other problem-solving court mentors, and others. Our training initiatives have been led by Jane Siegel, who is retiring this year after 20 years. We love you, Jane. In this past year alone, we've presented training sessions on criminal justice reform, increased needs of the elderly, civil justice, commercial courts, substance abuse, racial bias, juvenile justice, child welfare, domestic violence, bail reform, problem-solving courts, and more. Jane has crafted curriculums to ensure that when our citizens come to court, they interact with the best trained professionals in the nation. We owe you a debt of gratitude, Jane. Could you stand one more time? Training's not limited to our judges, though. Well-trained court-appointed special advocate, or CASAs, are more crucial now than ever. In 2017, our CASA program served the second highest number of children in the country, 26,000 children. I know all of our judges join me in thanking all of you for the increased funding last year. How timely was that? Thank you very much. As for problem-solving courts, they have tremendous return on investment in terms of defendant success in keeping nonviolent offenders out of jail. These courts require pioneering judges, supportive community, and training resources. We've increased the number of these courts by 10% this past year. We now have 87, with 15 more being developed. These courts are crucial for addressing the drug crisis, and I'm just going to give you one example. Judge Kenworthy, are you up there? Could you give us a wave? Thank you. In Grant County, Judge Dana Kenworthy saw a growing number of parents affected by addiction. To address the problem, she established the Specialized Family Recovery Court to include not just the addicted, but also the children, their children, the hidden victims of this drug crisis. I love this part. She says her court is guided by the patron saint of lost causes because the parents are chronic and deep-end users. 75% are addicted to opioids, and 1/3 are mothers with newborns. Judge Kenworthy's court is helping those parents redirect their lives. A recent court graduation at First Christian Church celebrated a 41-year-old father named Donald. At his graduation, he thanked supporters and described the level of persistence needed to overcome addiction. I have to chase the recovery like I did the dope man. I have to do it every day. Your judicial branch must have that same level of persistence with all of our initiatives because so much is at stake. Our readiness for the future is comprehensive and statewide, and it includes your appellate courts right here at the State House. Your Supreme Court last year reviewed 885 cases, issued 73 majority opinions, held 59 oral arguments. We traversed the state, having oral arguments from Gary Roosevelt High School to the University of Southern Indiana in Evansville. The hardworking judges on our Court of Appeals were also traveling and recently held their milestone 500th oral argument on the road. Could you all stand and be congratulated? Now I want to tell you just a little bit about the people with whom I'm privileged to serve. I really should have tried to convince Speaker Bosma to let me bring in a fog machine, loud music, and strobe lights to make these introductions. We are basketball-loving Indiana, aren't we? But I'll dispense with that pageantry and introduce your Supreme Court starting lineup. We're relatively new, especially compared to the 11-year span when there's no change in court membership. You might call that the Fab Five era of justices: Justices Shepard, Dixon, Sullivan, Bohm, and Rucker. But your new court brings a combined 150 years of legal and judicial experience, and our greatest strength is our collective decision-making ability. Let's begin with Justice Stephen David, our longest-serving justice. Justice Stephen David is a native Hoosier who is well-traveled. His travels remind us that there are places in the world where the rule of law is absent and the word of a tribal leader governs the day. Justice David is a highly distinguished 28-year Army veteran with multiple tours of duty in Iraq, Guantanamo Bay, Panama, and Germany. He testified before the U.S. House Armed Services Committee as an expert on prisons and detention operations in Iraq. Colonel David was awarded the Defense Superior Service Award. His military career alone provides a wealth of perspective as we discuss cases and administrative matters. He's even leading our Veterans Court expansion. Now let me tell you about his 22-year judicial career that followed 9 years as corporate counsel and a private practice attorney. As an elected judge in Boone County, he oversaw thousands of trials involving business disputes, juvenile and family matters, class actions, a cross-section of what our trial courts deal with every day. He is committed to juvenile justice reform, leading the JDAI, or Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. And this world-class Ironman is also our leader for court technology and the newly created Coalition for Court Access. Justice David, could you stand? There's still more. He has significantly contributed to our body of constitutional, contract, and common law. He has written 113 majority opinions and, yes, 22 dissents. We don't always agree with each other, and our system is stronger because of it. Well, like any great starting lineup, a varied skill set is important, so now I'd like to introduce you to Justice Massa. Justice Mark Massa is a familiar face to many of you, having worked in the State House in various capacities over the past 30 years. The Indiana University journalism major, enjoyed life as an award-winning newspaper reporter before joining Governor Orr's staff as a speechwriter when he was just 24. He attended law school at night and earned a clerkship with Chief Justice Shepard. His legal career continued for 15 years as a state and federal prosecutor. He helped establish Marion County's first drug court in 1998 and worked on counterterrorism efforts as an assistant U.S. attorney. During his career, he prosecuted cases ranging from misdemeanors to murder. In 2006, he began serving as a general counsel to Governor Daniels and enjoyed the task of vetting 34 judicial appointments across the state, some of whom are here today. Justice Massa is now hard at work chairing the new Marion County Judicial Selection Committee that you created in last session. Justice Massa's broad experience in the other branches of government and the Fourth Estate brings a perspective beyond criminal or state constitutional law. He brings to our court his deep appreciation for separation of powers and the independent role of the press. He has authored a wide range of opinions, including defining the scope of your public records laws, the constitutionality of your statutes, regarding the dissemination of material harmful to minors. Justice Massa, could you please stand? I didn't tell him I was going to do this. I like to surprise them. They did not know they were going to have to stand. Justice Jeffrey Slaughter earned his law degree and MBA in finance from Indiana University in Bloomington. His 29-year legal career spans state and federal court with cases ranging from complex business disputes to capital murder. For several years, he practiced at a large Chicago law firm where he handled commercial bankruptcy and antitrust matters. In 1995, he was recruited back to Indiana by the Attorney General's office to help oversee the state's antitrust enforcement efforts and to prosecute the state's claims against the tobacco industry. Jeff worked for 3 different attorney generals on these difficult matters. Thank you, Pamela Carter, Jeffrey Modisette, and Karen Freeman Wilson for bringing him back home again to Indiana. Although he still loves the Cubs, Illinois never got him back. With his work complete at the AG's office in 2001, he began a 15-year career at an Indianapolis private law firm, litigating disputes including environmental, antitrust, securities, commercial fraud, and constitutional cases. He understands complex litigation. Ask him to tell you about his work on a $62 billion telecommunications merger, or why a case involving 7 million eggs remained in litigation for 18 years. Justice Slaughter's experience from the other side of the bench brings the court a valuable firsthand perspective on how court rules and decisions affect litigants and the general public, including the time and monetary cost of compliance. Thank you, Justice Slaughter. Could you stand? Finally, Justice Christopher Goff. He joined our starting lineup June 24th. Well done, Governor Holcomb. Justice Goff will tell you that his legal practice involved ordinary clients with everyday legal issues such as domestic relations, criminal matters, wills, estates, and small business needs. He saw his clients as people, not problems. He received multiple awards for his volunteer legal work for the poor. His work as a community leader, public defender, small-town law partner, and judge who presided over jury and bench trials gives him a foundation of knowledge about life in a small Indiana town, and that perspective informs our decisions around the conference table each and every week. Judge Goff was instrumental in implementing 3 certified problem-solving courts, and he led the Protection Order Committee. Justice Goff is devoting his time to the important Public Defenders Task Force, and he's leading our problem-solving court committee. Justice Goff, at his robing ceremony, inspired everyone in the room with these comments. Today, we are gathered to celebrate the fact that someone born to teenage parents, married to the daughter of migrant workers, and from a remote part of the state has been selected to serve on Indiana's highest court. That gives me a sense of hope. If such a thing is possible for me, why shouldn't it be possible for any child? Justice Goff, could you stand up? I concur with you, Justice Goff, on that statement. We began today looking at the hope-filled faces of children in courthouses around the state. With this new court, our appellate and trial court colleagues and unified staff, I stand before you with confidence that your courts are ready to meet the challenges ahead. The state of your judiciary is strong, and we are filled with hope for the future. Thank you very much.
This session is now adjourned.
Chair recognizes Representative Kersey for a motion Is there a second? All in favor indicate by voting aye. Those opposed, no. We are adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.